my name is Mary, and this is my informative speech on Helvetica. So if I walked into a room right now and I asked the audience of the room, have you ever heard of Helvetica? A few people might say yes. Most of the people in the room probably have used Helvetica without knowing it, and I promise you every person in the room has seen Helvetica without knowing it, or maybe they did know. But Helvetica is a typeface. It's the typeface you actually see here. And with a typeface, there's more to it than just some letters that Microsoft or Macintosh chose to put on a computer for us to use. Each typeface has a story, and each typeface was created by an artist for a specific purpose and reason. And as a graphic designer, I've gotten to know a lot of the typefaces and the reasons why these typefaces were created, and Helvetica is the most popular one that's used today, more or less. So, to talk to you a little bit about Helvetica, I'm going to start with a brief history on typefaces and how they came to what they are today, and it'll lead me into why Max Mettinger created Helvetica and why so many companies use it. So to be able to start, we're going to have to go back in time to the early 15th century to meet Jonas Gutenberg. And Gutenberg, you may have heard of the Gutenberg press. It was the first printing press that was created. Up until the printing press that was created, anytime a book was made, it was either done by hand carving letters or writing them. So during this time frame, there was a lot of advancements in technology, working with different metals of iron and steel. And with the invention of the printing press, we created a different type of letter forms. The letter forms were no longer carved into wood, they were cast into iron or steel. And you'll see here an iron cast page layout. Each letter was then laid out individually to create a word, and then a sentence, and then the page of the book. And again, each was done individually. Up until this time, we didn't have fonts. Everything, again, was done by hand. So the first font that was used on the Gutenberg press was based off of a handwriting form at the time called blackletter. As you can see here, it's pretty ornate and very dense, so it's very hard to read. Legibility became an issue, and that's what the designers of that time started focusing on, was rather than the graphic elements, it was the legibility of the books. So with the artists that were working on it, the first one that we'll come to is going to be Nicholas Jensen. Nicholas Jensen was one of the first designers to come up with the Roman style, and you'll see here it's very similar to what you would see on a Times New Roman font. This is all taking place in the late 15th century. And you can see here how it's become much more legible than the previous black letter setting. You'll notice the difference. But you can see there's still some ornate letter forms going on there, so it's not as legible as it could be. When you're reading through it, those can become distracting and hard for your eyes to follow. So when you're getting around 1757, we run into John Baskerville. So Baskerville is actually a font that we still use today. It was one of the first truly successful letterform fonts, where he used alternating thick and thin lines to allow your eyes to flow freely through the words, making it easier to read. And again, like I said, it was so successful that it is still a font that you'll find on your computer today. He was just one of the first to do it. And as the designers are becoming more and more, or getting better and better at creating these legible fonts, they're really kind of getting that hard. You're running, the 1800s go by and the 1900s, you're now into the 19th century, where industry and business are starting to really take off also. And with industry and business starting to really take off, these companies that are forming want to bring new consumers in. So advertising becomes really big. So you're starting to see these really big, bold letter forms to go on advertisements. And after a while, it's really cool for them at first, but then after a while it starts getting a little bit out of hand. These letter forms are creating the image for the company rather than allowing the company to use the letter forms to portray their image. And so from here they needed to go back and become something more simple. So you'll see, so that's when Max Mettinger and Ed Hoffman created Helvetica in 1951. And you can see here where it's real clean, real straight. They removed the little serifs that come off the end, and you can see even where I've used there the different weights and variations of the font allow you to get the same clean look, but create a different look at the same time. And so you'll see where we'll go back to an ad from the 1950s for Coke. Here you have a lot of the handwriting fonts, and it's not as clear of it's more of like, what is Phil Risotto's image of Coke, not what's Coke's image of Coke when you're looking at the ad. So this is what happens when you place that ad with Helvetica. It becomes, it's the real thing, Coke, period. It's simple, it's clean, it's to the point. The font doesn't take over. It allows Coke to portray their own image while using the font. And a lot of companies really started liking Helvetica for that reason. More and more designers were picking up on that, using it again and again because it had those clean lines. They weren't distracting. You can use it for almost anything, letting the company shine through with their own message rather than it becoming a distraction. And you start to see Helvetica pop up everywhere. And for example, even because it reads so cleanly on a digital screen like you're seeing here, most web pages are going to be in Helvetica. Your word processors are going to default to Helvetica a lot of times. It actually was the default for this. I didn't change it. Fonts like Arial that other word processors may use as their default were based off of Helvetica. If you look at the two next to each other, they're almost impossible to tell apart. In addition to web designs, advertisers, it printed well. Companies, you'll start to see it on companies like American Apparel, American Airlines, Target, the North Face, and each and every one of those logos is a different font by a different company done in the Helvetica font. So it's literally everywhere. You will see it every day because of its clean, simple letter form. So with that being said,